Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer. So, we're now officially in Q4 2019. What that means? We're getting into the holiday season, and all those great Black Friday deals are going to start kicking in here, not too distant future here. So, what I wanted to do today is kind of more of an opinion piece. It's more of a how to go about buying and shopping for your next PC or PC upgrades. Basically the hierarchy as to what you should consider most important and what's less important. And basically the reasons why I feel that you should invest heavier in the more important stuff and basically invest a little bit less in the less important things. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about here today. This way, when you are doing your shopping, this might help you prioritize, and there might be certain things that you were looking at that might be less important than they really are. So let's go ahead and get into this here today. All right, so for me, the number one most important component is going to be your platform or motherboard. Now, this is important for a few different reasons. This is going to affect your upgrade path, and it's also going to affect what CPU you can get. And I'm going to do CPU and platform separately because, well, they are two different components. You can get a platform that supports really high-end CPUs, but buy a cheaper one, or you could buy a cheaper platform that supports a few really high-end CPUs and go that route. So there's two different ways you can go there. Now, if you're looking at upgrading, obviously you can look at your current platform and see if that's still going to work for you. The first thing that you have to really realize is that consoles are going to be changing next year, meaning that games are going to shift into a new direction starting probably 2021 or late 2022. Probably the holiday season's there, they'll start dumping the current gen consoles. But if you're looking to play games from this generation on back, and that's really your only concern, you really only need a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. And that's going to be somewhere in the Haswell level of IPC if you want to get the best level of performance. So a 4-core, 8-thread Haswell level CPU or a Zen 1 level CPU. They both have similar IPC when it comes to gaming. So that would be my recommendation as far as CPU side. So with that in mind, that then affects what platform you want to get. If you have an older platform, obviously, you probably want to upgrade that first off. And the other thing that you really need to take into account is upgrade path. Now, we know next-gen consoles are going to have an 8-core, 16-thread Zen 2 CPU in there. So we already have a good idea of what performance those are going to need for future gaming. So with that in mind, my personal recommendation, if you are going to upgrade or buy into a new platform, make sure that that platform can offer 8 cores and 16 threads at a minimum, and make sure that the IPC level of that will be near Zen 2. So on the Intel side, that's going to be their more modern architectures, pretty much Skylake to newer. So Skylake X would probably be just fine as well, but you're going to want Skylake or newer level of IPC on the Intel side, and then for AMD, you want a platform that will support Zen 2 CPUs or beyond. That's just my recommendation if you're going to be buying something new here today. Now that ties straight into CPU. Like I said, these two kind of go together, but the second most important thing is your CPU. I actually built this channel on the fact that CPUs are more important than people thought. Back in 2016, when this channel started, I did this video right here, and I got a lot of flack. Actually, I did a couple of videos explaining that the newer GPUs might be too powerful for the i5s that everybody was recommending at the time. Turns out I was right on that, and I did a few videos and did my own benchmarks to demonstrate this. So making sure that you get a CPU that's going to perform well in all these tasks is really critical. So as I mentioned, 4-core, 8-thread is really all you need here today. So if you have like a 4770K or a Zen 1, I think was it like the 1500X, that was 4-core, 8-thread, or 2400G, you should be just fine throughout this generation. Now the big thing is, like I said, with platform, if you don't have a platform that can upgrade, so something like the 4770K from Intel, you might want to look into upgrading that platform, but I would probably recommend doing it in the future as your CPU is still going to be good enough for the next couple of years. So what it really comes down to is what you're looking to do. Are you wanting to have a CPU that's going to last? You just want to buy one and be done? Then going with an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, so something like the 9900K or something like the 3700X from AMD makes a lot of sense. You buy one of those, you're going to be good through the next generation, so you don't have to really worry about that. But if you're looking to stretch your money and put as little as possible into the platform here today, you can get yourself a 4-core 8-thread CPU and then wait a few years till those 8-core 16-thread CPUs become, older. Secondhand, you can get them for $100, maybe $150. You can do that as well, and that'll save you a lot of money if you want to go that route. So here today, like I said, 4-core, 8-thread or better is going to be just fine. It really just depends what budget you want to do. Ideally, you probably want a 6-core CPU at the very least if you want the best possible performance. But as I said, 4-core, 8-thread should still get you through the next few years. Now, the third most important component, this is going to be one that not a lot of people are going to be thinking about, but it's actually going to be your storage solution. This is going to be very, very critical moving forward. Typically, you don't upgrade storage all that often. It's one of those things you buy and you pretty much use it until it's dead or you need greater storage capacity. You don't really upgrade this regularly. With the next-gen consoles touting storage capabilities that we've never seen before, this was from Sony, they basically said there's nothing on the market right now that's going to be as good as the PS5 storage solution. I'm thinking it's going to be a PCIe 4 NVMe with some sort of on-chip DRAM or something for some sort of caching, and that would allow them to basically do things that no storage solution on PC can do here today. However, if you are buying a PC here today, and like I said, you want your storage solution to last, the smart move would be to get yourself an NVMe SSD. Just a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte NVMe is probably going to be the smart way to go, because even when that next gen storage solution comes out, it may be superior to what you have, but even current day NVMe's are so much more powerful than the 5400 RPM 2.5-inch laptop drives that current consoles have. So your next generation experience might not be as good. Your loading times might be slightly longer, but at the very least, you won't need to upgrade. I can't see any PCIe Gen 3 NVMe's really being out of date and obsolete by the next generation consoles. They'll still definitely be usable. So that'd be my recommendation if you're going to be buying a new storage solution today for a new build, or if you're going to be upgrading. I actually just got myself a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, and it's great. Tons of storage, and I no longer need to use any mechanical hard drives. So that would be my recommendation. If you want to go more on the cheap, or you're not interested in next generation gaming, you're only interested in today on back, you could get yourself an SSD, like a SATA SSD boot drive, which are really, really cheap, and then get yourself a mechanical 7200 RPM drive. Those are very inexpensive and much faster than what current games are being developed with in mind. So you can definitely get away with those if you'd like. If you're not interested in next generation gaming, if you're just like, I don't care about future games, I just want today on back or older gaming, that'd be just fine. But if you are looking towards the future, I would invest a little bit extra in those NVMe drives here today. All right, so the fourth most important component in any PC gaming build is actually going to be the power supply. Now, if you're upgrading, you may already have a solid power supply, and this doesn't really apply to you. But if you are going for a new build, power supply is the next thing that you really want to take into consideration. So you want to make sure that you have something. Personally, I like 80 plus bronze or better, and modular is not really necessary depending on your case. If you're going for a really small form factor, obviously go with a modular power supply. It's going to allow you to do better cable management, but at the same time, not super necessary. I also recommend going with one of the bigger name brands, something with a decent warranty. I have had power supplies shoot out on me, but they were always cheaper, no-name brands. You can also do some homework. A lot of the smaller brands out there actually provide for the bigger name brands, like Seasonic, for example. You may not be familiar with them because they don't advertise quite as much, but they make pretty much the best power supplies you can get. And there are other brands out there similar to that. But make sure you get a solid power supply, because that's something that, like storage, pretty much lasts until it's dead or you need greater capacity. As far as like the wattage goes, that's going to depend on your build and your form factor. That's going to be different for everybody. Smart move here today seems to be the 500 to 600 watt range. That's going to handle pretty much everything. But if you do want something like, I don't know, 2080 Ti class graphics cards, you might want to go for that 600 to 700 watt range. Realistically, you don't need to go any higher than that. SLI and all that stuff is pretty much dead. So you don't really need these crazy big power supplies. So the 500 to 600 watt range should work for just about everybody out there. And worst case scenario, 600 to 700 watts if you need, if you're going to have a big power hungry graphics card going into your system. Now, this is going to be kind of interesting because we're all the way down on number 5. Now comes the graphics card. And the graphics card in a gaming PC, while important, isn't anywhere near as important as your platform, as your CPU, as your storage. I mean, believe it or not, this is how far down graphics cards are. And a lot of people think that, well, you can always go ahead and get all that other stuff later. In reality, the graphics card's the easiest thing in the world to upgrade. And if you have a decent CPU that's providing enough performance, then you can always go ahead and upgrade and you don't have to really worry about it. So this is the reason why I put it at number 5, because worst case scenario, you can just lower detail settings. If at this point you buy a good platform, good motherboard, good storage, good power supply, and you're sitting there and those are all good, but you're kind of tight on cash, buy a cheap graphics card. Get yourself something like an RX 570 or an RX 580. You can get them secondhand for between $80 and $120. I mean, they're really cheap and will work just fine. And they'll run any games out there. All you have to do is just lower some settings. You can even run 1440p on an RX 580. That's what I'm doing. Just have to lower down some settings, but the game still runs well. Now, if you don't have enough CPU horsepower, what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of stuttering. No matter how powerful your GPU is, for example, if you got yourself like a 2-core, 4-thread, i3 from a few years ago, and you're running it with like a GTX 1080 class graphics card, somewhere around there, an RX 5700 or RTX 2060 level GPU, which is a plenty powerful graphics card, you're going to have a very, very poor gaming experience. No matter how low you lower those settings on your game, it's just not going to perform well. So making sure that you have a better CPU first is more important than graphics cards. And as I mentioned, you can always upgrade those later. It's very easy. You take it out, you slap a new one in, and you're done. So in my recommendation, buy the graphics card that's going to do what you want within your price range, but make sure you don't skimp on those other components first, and then invest whatever you have left pretty much into the graphics card, as the next few components really aren't as important. Next up is obviously going to be memory. Now, memory, a lot of people talk about because you can tweak them and you can get some extra performance out of this. But as far as RAM goes, as long as you have the amount that you need, so the proper capacity, so today that'd be at least 8 gigabytes, but 16 is recommended. So if you get the cheapest 16 gigabyte kit out there, that's still going to be just fine. And once again, much like with graphics cards, it's super easy to upgrade this later on if and when you need to, and you just slap in faster memory or more memory or whatever it is at that point in time. So as far as memory goes, it really doesn't matter on the Intel side anywhere near as much as it does on AMD. Right now, the 2666 is usually going to be on par or within a couple of dollars of like the 2133 stuff. So realistically, 16 gigabytes at 2666, that's going to do you just fine. And if later on you do need higher capacity or more memory or faster memory or whatever, super easy to upgrade. So I'd make sure that that's not really holding you back. You can go super cheap on RAM and games are still going to run just fine. And then finally, the last core component of any PC build is your case. Now, cases really aren't that important. The only thing that you need to make sure is that it has enough cooling solution going through. But you can even get away without even having a case at all. You can just sit your motherboard right on top of the box that it comes with, plug everything in, and that will work. And that's the reason why I put this so far down on the list. Cases are also super subjective. People are going to want really small. Some people want really big. Some people, you're going to want your own features there. So this is very subjective from each individual. But personally, when it comes to buying cases, I found that the $30 to $40 cases out there, pretty much the cheapest ones, work just fine. I think the case I'm using right now, I got for $29.99. Does everything that I want. It's fantastic. Typically, the most expensive cases I've ever bought were probably the $60 to $80 range. Those are great. They typically come with more fans and a couple extra features. And while they're nice, they're not exactly necessary. So realistically, between $30 and $80, that's the most that I would spend on a case. But there are specific use case cases out there. So like really small form factors and things like that. They cost a lot of money. And if that's what you want, I mean, go for it. But as far as the hierarchy goes on what you should prioritize, that should be the last thing that you really put money into over all the rest of the components. That's really the way to go. Then, of course, next would be something like keyboard and mouse and monitor. Once again, that's too subjective. That's not something that I want to cover here today. I've already told you the Pixio PX329 that I'm using. Dollar for dollar is probably overall the best monitor you can get, but not everybody wants a 32-inch. So once again, that's very subjective, so I don't want to really go too far into that. But alrighty guys, that's basically my recommendations on how to go about upgrading and when you're buying a new PC, like how to go ahead and prioritize certain things. Platform is most critical. Personally, right now, the AM4 platform is the best because you can go from 2 cores, 4 threads, all the way up to 16 cores and 32 threads. You can get motherboards about $50, $60, $70 that are really, really good, especially when they go on sale. Get your B450 motherboard for like $60 here in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to afford you that wide range of CPUs that you can go with. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Was this helpful to you? Does this kind of help prioritize? Are you going to be building a new PC or upgrading this holiday season? I'm really interested to know. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. And that's all I have for today. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.